And good afternoon. Welcome to the booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. Thank you for making us part of your day. My next guest is Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District. Chuck, may I call you Chuck?
Yes, sir. That'll be fine.
Chuck, welcome to the booth.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Chuck, kind of let the listeners know a little bit about Chuck Kasting.
Chuck Kasting is a pretty simple fella. I've lived in Stoddard County. I'm actually a Sikeston boy by native. I was born and raised over at Sikeston.
We're not going to hold that against you, Chuck.
Please don't. Please don't. I moved over here to Dexter in 1996 when I met my wife. She's a lifelong resident here of Dexter. And at the time, I was a EMT. And I started with the ambulance district here in Stoddard County in 1995. So I've been with the ambulance district now for about 30 years.
Tell the listeners a little bit about the training that Chuck Kasting has received to eventually become the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District.
Well, starting off, I actually got into EMS by accident. I started off my career in wanting to actually be a firefighter. And decided that through my training and everything that I didn't want to run into burning buildings. And so I wound up going to school after I had my EMT license. To go to EMT school, it took me about 6 months to create that there. I got hired on part-time here with the ambulance district, like I said, in August of 1995. Immediately went full-time in October of 1995 as an EMT. Paid my dues. About 2 years later, went to paramedic school. Got through the paramedic school, and then just eventually started moving up through the ranks and moved over to supervisor. Spent 16 years with the ambulance district here as David Cooper, the former manager, as his assistant manager. So had lots of tutelage, if you will, underneath him, and was able to move into the directorship whenever he retired at the end of 2020.
And again, we're going to welcome to the booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590 with Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District. Chuck is gracious enough to give us about an hour of his time to talk about the importance of the Stoddard County Ambulance District. And Chuck, you know, one thing we talked about, and I would be remiss if I didn't get you, you indicated that your wife is a native of Dexter. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, yeah.
And you live here in Dexter now?
Yes.
And while we're talking off the air, I know that your family and yourself, you have a long history in EMS. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. My whole family was in medicine. I have a grandmother that was LPN. I have several cousins that are nurses, and I have a brother that's 10 years older than me, and he's actually a paramedic up in North Scott County Ambulance District, and he actually taught the paramedic program in Southeast Missouri in the early to mid 80s. So yeah, I come from pretty much a long line of emergency medicine, if you will. And
again, you're not one to boast, and I understand that, but you and your brothers combined, you said you have about how many years of
right at about 75 years of experience between the two of us.
Couldn't be in better hands here for the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District, Chuck Kasting, on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. And Chuck, tell us a little bit about the Stoddard County Ambulance District. What exactly is going on out there?
The ambulance district was formed in actually May of 1975. We just experienced or just celebrated in April of last year, May of last year, our 50th anniversary. And actually last Friday on the 6th of February, we had our open house for people to come through and tour the ambulance district and see what everything has happened from there. When this service first come on, it was a BLS service. It was managed for about the first 10 years just by the ambulance district board. We have a 6-member board that oversees and sets the direction for the ambulance service. And then and for the first 10 years, that's how it was done. And then in September of 85, they hired a manager, which was David Cooper at that time. And David was with us for, oh my goodness, 30 plus years, almost 35 years. Like I said, he retired at the end of 2020, and I was his assistant for 16 years, and then I moved into the directorship after that.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District, celebrating 50 years. And when was that?
The ambulance district was formed in May of 1975.
May of 75. Wait a minute, Chuck. If I was born in 73, that means I'm in my 50s as well. I'm getting old.
Well, welcome to the club, because that's me as well too, because I was born in the early 70s myself. So,
and Chuck, one thing that a lot of people don't realize, tell the listeners a little bit about the number of calls that the ambulance district receives.
Yeah, that's something that's really changed. Again, I've been with the district for 30 years, and so when I started here in 1995, the district was running approximately around 25 to 2,800 calls of service per year, is what they were running. And so it was a slower time, and now then fast forward to 2025, we finished up the end of 2025 with almost 6,700 calls for the year. So we've well over doubled our amount of calls within that time, and up until the end of 2025, we were doing that with the same number of personnel. The Stoddard County Ambulance covers the 10th largest county within the state. Stoddard County is the 10th largest county in the state. We cover 829 square miles. We do that with a total of 4 stations, Dexter being our home station. That's our busiest station. That's where all of our administrative offices are, everything. Then we have substations in Bernie, and then we have a substation in Advance and one in Puxico as well. We run, as we always ran, 4 crews is what we ran up until towards the end of 2025. We actually increased that up to 5 crews. And so we're running 2 crews here out of our Dexter facility 24 hours a day. And then we run 1 ALS crew out of each one of our outlying facilities then.
So when you talk about running crews, that doesn't mean that you only have that number of paramedics or EMTs on staff or are hired. It just means at the time you're running 5 crews at one time.
Yes, that is
24 hours a day.
Yes, sir. That is correct. We actually employ right now on the full-time side of things 15 paramedics and 13 EMTs is what we actually employ full-time. And then we have several part-time personnel as well too on each side of that also pulls shifts and comes in as they're available to help us out. And
again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District. And one thing, Chuck, and a lot of people don't understand this, or they may understand it, but I think it's very important for them to hear, is you're 24/7, 365 days a year. You don't get holidays off. You don't get weekends off. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you guys are manning the location in Bernie, Dexter, Puxico, and Advance. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct. Whenever our crews come on to work, we work 13 schedules, 13 4-week schedules within a year. And so when they work, our full-time employees are mandated to work 10 of those days. And so usually when they come into work, actually, they are the full-time staff, especially when they come in, they sign on at 7 a.m. in the morning. They're there for 48 hours straight. So they don't go home. They're housed there. They have apartments. Now, that doesn't mean they don't sleep within that time, but they are dedicated to that department or to that station at that point. And so they're there and they're paid around the clock for the full 48-hour shifts or 24-hour, whatever they may be there. They're paid the entire time they're there.
And forgive me for not knowing more about this, and if my good friend Josh Speakman is listening, he will be hitting me over the head for asking this question. You indicated that you have paramedics and you have EMTs. Explain to the listener a little bit about the difference between a paramedic and an EMT.
Okay. The paramedic is the advanced care provider, and then the EMT is what we call a basic level provider or basic life support. To become an EMT, it's going to take you anywhere from 4 to 6 months, depending on which program you go to. And you are trained in basically administration of oxygen, bleeding control, CPR. There are certain things you can do with the way everything has progressed. You can actually do different breathing interventions and things of that nature now. You can give very limited amount of medications, and usually it's classified as assisting the patient in taking their own medication. The next step from that, there's actually now 3 recognized levels in the state of Missouri. So you have your basic, then you have your what's called an advanced EMT, and they can do a little bit more. We actually have 2 on staff, and they're allowed to start IVs, give certain medications, but again, they still can't give the full gamut of everything. And then you have the paramedic, which is what we employ most of in the field. And the paramedic is a full ALS provider. They get more invasive into skills. We're allowed to break the skin, start IVs, cardiac rhythm interpretation, run and interpret 12-lead EKGs for the chest pain patients, and get a lot more in depth into giving and mixing and giving different medications to patients.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Loop with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District. And Chuck, one thing I also find fascinating is in Dunklin County, it's my understanding that we have a contract with, I think, Medic One, who does some of the actual personnel. And I'm not really sure, but I think we own the equipment. Does Stoddard County own all the ambulances and all the equipment that you guys are currently running here in Stoddard County?
Yes, that is correct, and you're exactly right on that. While Dunklin County, to my knowledge, they do have a ambulance district board.
Yes,
and they own all their equipment. They own the equipment and things like that, but they have hired another service to manage the day-to-day operations and to staff it. Whereas when Stoddard County went away from the board managing it, they actually hired their own individual person to manage the district. In Stoddard County Ambulance District, we own all the buildings, we own all the ambulances, we own all the equipment, we own everything.
And the reason why I say that is because I think the citizens of Stoddard County should appreciate that a local person is in charge of all aspects of the Stoddard County Ambulance District, and that's the director. That's you, Chuck Kasting.
Yes, and I work off of, again, we have a 6-member board that's elected. Each member on the board serves a 3-year seat. Every April, there's 2 members that come up for re-election. They set the direction they want the district to go. They've defined all the policies, things of that nature. Then they've hired me as the director to see to the day-to-day operations. And then from there, I have my command staff that's down below me, or following from that, I have my assistant director, Tyler Juden, and then as we go on down from there, different crew chiefs and everything.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Loop with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. You're talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of Stoddard County Ambulance District. And Chuck, it's my understanding you're also basically, for lack of a better word, the chief financial officer of the district. Is that correct? You're in charge of the money?
Yes, sir. That's correct. It is part of my duties is I have to, along with the board treasurer,
sure.
We work on this here, and I have to outline the budget. It's my job to make the budget, present it to the board, get it approved, and in there recommend to them, hey, we need to change, this way of formatting or how we work, or we need to purchase extra ambulances or things of that nature, and just kind of where the financial foothold of the actual ambulance district is setting.
And not to try to hold you to any figures, but for the 2025, because this is 2026, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
2025, what kind of budget were you looking at there at the Stoddard County Ambulance District?
In 2025, we actually had it was right at a little over a $5 million budget. And now we are supported through, and how we are financed through is through 2 main areas. We're financed, number one, through a property tax that the board sets every August. This rate is sent to us, by the state auditor's office, and then the board will evaluate that. I go through it, and then we cannot go above that. Even though when the district was formed, it was voted in to have up to a 30-cent tax ceiling. That's 30 cents on the assessed 100. That doesn't mean that's what we're getting.
Sure.
Actually, right now, we are currently setting at a 20 cents on the 100 assessed tax is what we're drawing right now. And so that's one way that we get money for our revenues to operate, which accounts for roughly only about 19 to 20% of our budget. The rest of the money comes from what we call a fee for service. And so we have base rate and we have our mileage rates. And that's where the rest of the money comes from on that, from billing the insurance companies and things of that nature and charging for our service.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Loop with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District. Chuck, we talk about the property tax. You get that. It's listed as an ambulance. I think it's an ambulance board tax.
Yeah, the ambulance district tax. Is the way it's going to be listed on your tax receipt whenever you go pay your personal property and your real estate tax. Off to the side there, it'll have ambulance district tax, and it'll say what our rate is, which is 20 cents on the 100 right now, and then it'll give the total amount of what is actually being paid to the ambulance district on those taxes.
And that's just a minuscule amount of what is actually financing the ambulance board right now.
That is correct. Like I said, in 2025, we had a little bit over a $5 million operating budget. Out of that, the tax money that we drew in accounted for roughly I think it was like 19.7% of our actual operating budget. Everything else was self-generated through billables.
And again, we talk about when the ambulance board was first started. Did we say we made about 2,800 calls? Is that right?
Well, that's whenever I started.
When you started in 95.
In 95.
And since then, it's went to 6,800?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
And where has the tax rate went in that time?
Everything since I've been privy to that information, we've always been right around that 20 cents on the 100. We've stayed kind of stagnant where we've stayed at. And that's one reason why, coming up this April, we're going to be coming to the voters to propose a new funding mechanism for the ambulance district and kind of migrate and transition from that property tax, if you will, which is only placed on just a select few. The actual property owners within Stoddard County are who's funding the current ambulance district, that and then through our billables.
So we're going to talk a little bit about this April election for the change of the mechanism. Would you like to kind of explain what the proposal is?
Sure. First and foremost, this proposal is really all about property tax relief to the citizens of Stoddard County. The board's already committed to setting our current property tax in 2026. When we have to set this in August, they've already committed that they will set it to zero in August of 2026. They will freeze all of our billing rates at their current status, and they will remain frozen until 2028 to give us time for our revenues to stabilize. This will all take place if the voters will approve us transitioning from a property tax-based system to a 1% sales tax system. And whenever you look at this as a whole, this winds up being a rollback. This winds up being a savings because the ambulance district has already committed, and we will do away with our property tax in 2026. Now, the way the law reads, we have to roll back our property tax by 50% of whatever we would bring in by sales tax. It's estimated that our sales tax in Stoddard County at the 1% would offset our entire property tax. Now, by law, we wouldn't have to do that until 2028 because we have to draw that full tax for a year. But the board feels confident enough that it will be there if the voters will approve us to transition to this, and we will do away with our property tax a full 2 years early, and we'll set it to zero this August and freeze all of our current rates at their normal levels. And hopefully we'll reassess, and once the revenue stabilizes, then there's a possible chance that the board could see fit to maybe even start reducing some of our rates at that point.
Okay. And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District, talking about the April election to change the mechanism for the taxing for the ambulance district here in Stoddard County, proposing to go to a 1% sales tax. And Chuck, no one likes taxes. I'll be first on it. But I can't think of a more fair way of having it done than doing a sales tax. Can you? That
is the whole reason why we want to go to that. Again, because as I said right now, the way our tax revenue's done is in just our property owners. You have to live in Stoddard County and own property, taxable property within Stoddard County. What a lot of people don't realize, out of those 6,800 calls we were talking about, almost 20% of the patients that the ambulance treat and transport don't even live in this county.
Absolutely.
And so, but they shop in this county.
Sure.
So with Highway 60 future to become Interstate 57, that number is just going to keep increasing. This way, it spreads the responsibility out across all citizens in Stoddard County. And the nice thing really about a sales tax is that it's indiscriminatory. It doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter your nationality. It doesn't matter your bank account. It doesn't have any bearing on that. Everybody's going to pay the exact same tax in doing this. And as well, then the consumer actually has a little bit more control as well in how much of the tax they pay, rather than somebody saying, hey, here's your tax bill. It's determined by you by how much you spend within Stoddard County. And what a lot of people think, they hear 1%, they think, oh, this is going to cost us thousands and thousands of dollars. In reality, for me personally, for what is paid to the ambulance district through my personal property and real estate taxes, I would have to spend in excess of $11,000 in 1 year on taxable goods within Stoddard County in order to spend that same $111 that comes to the ambulance district through my personal property and real estate tax.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District, talking a lot about the proposed April election to change the mechanism of the tax rate. And when I say that, the funding mechanism for the Stoddard County Ambulance District. And, you look at it, Chuck, and I don't know if you have the numbers, but for instance, if I live in low-income housing, or if I live in an apartment, or if I'm living somewhere, I'm not required to pay any property tax on that. So, but do you have a breakdown of kind of, and again, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot, the number of calls you receive from those type of facilities versus property owners?
To have that exact number, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's probably something I can actually obtain and pull. But I can tell you just from calls going out and everything, we do tend to run most of our calls into those where there's not a lot of taxes. It's renter. It's more into our I don't know how to say it. It's not meaning anything bad in this, but more like into the lower income area, into that area where there's not any revenue coming to us from the tax base.
And what I want the listeners and the voters to know is, first of all, Dexter is very blessed with having a hospital.
That is correct. In a very good hospital.
At a very good hospital, and also an excellent Stoddard County Ambulance District. And I think people will realize the way that you improve business, you bring in more business, you bring in more commerce, is A, have a great school district, B, have a hospital, and B, have an opportunity for someone to be able to get to the hospital when they're sick. Those are three things that Stoddard County all has. And with this implementation of a 1% sales tax to help benefit the ambulance district, I can't think of a more beneficial way to help bring in more revenue. Can you?
Yes, and that's exactly one of the reasons why we're wanting to look at this, because whenever you look at this and you break down and people's asked me this before since we've been talking about this tax, well, where are you going to be spending that extra revenue at? Why is this needed? And it's simply going to be used really into our equipment and maintaining where we're at. Right now, we have a fleet of 10 ambulances. And those ambulances cost us somewhere in the neighborhood to maintain somewhere in the neighborhood of around $400,000 a year. And that's the costs just keep going up and up and up with those. Again, the more age you get on a fleet, just like your personal vehicle, the more age it gets, the more it's going to break down. So what we're looking to try to do in this is to rotate our fleet and get a younger fleet, if you will. Right now, our fleet sits at 10 years old is the age of our fleet. We're wanting to cut that in half by 2030. And how do we do that? We do that by buying more than one ambulance a year, which is what we currently do. But having said that, the ambulance we bought 10 years ago in 2016 cost us $262,000. Now, that's just the box and just the chassis. That doesn't include equipping it. That doesn't include our cot system in there. That doesn't include our monitors. That same ambulance that we're buying this year has increased up to $368,000 in 10 years. The monitor that we bought for the ambulance in 2016 cost us $37,000. The same monitor this year is costing $65,000. So as you can see, the cost of everything through just actual growth, and just as COVID really made everything go through the roof, and then with the implementation of the tariffs and everything. And I'm not trying to get into a political debate here on anything, but again, tariffs, we see that coming in where those are being passed on to us in buying this stuff. And so that's one way we're trying to figure, because we figure we're going to have to buy at least 2 to 3 ambulances a year in order to rotate our fleet by 2030. And so in 2 ambulances are going to cost us roughly $800,000. To buy 3 ambulances is going to be in the neighborhood of $1.2 million. But if we can cut our ambulance life or our age in half down to 5 years, well, it stands to reason that should cut our maintenance costs down as well too. Whereas we're expecting this year to spend somewhere in the neighborhood of around $400,000 to $415,000 in maintenance costs and fuel. By cutting the age of our fleet, we're hoping to cut that down to that $220,000 range.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District, talking a lot about the April election. It is going to be in April, is that correct?
Yeah, April 7th.
April 7th. If anyone has any questions about the implementation of the tax, how it's going to work, please reach out to Chuck. He'll be more than willing to come talk to any organization, any group, provide any information. And Chuck, we're talking a lot about this. One thing I think also we need to be aware of is if you want quality people, you want quality paramedics, you want quality EMTs, you want them, first of all, working on upgraded, newer equipment.
Yes, sir.
And you
that's
also
correct.
need to pay them a wage that is commensurate with their skill and their level of expertise, correct?
That is very correct. And, and that's kind of almost a cutthroat area.
Absolutely.
In EMS, and I notice this, and I think it's with any place, in order to have good employees, strong employees, dedicated employees, you've got to pay them. You've got to give them good benefits. You've got to have all of that stuff in place for them and have good equipment. And I know people that have left one service to go to another service, or left one job to go to another job because Service B had newer, more up-to-date equipment than Service A, because I've had people ask me, well, why do you have to have the battery powered cots and loading system in the ambulances? Well, I can tell you, number one, because it cuts down on injuries.
Absolutely.
By a phenomenal rate. And number two, if I don't do that, every other service in this area has those. And like I can tell you from 30 years of experience in EMS, the staff will make a change. They will move, and they will go from one service to the other just to get that good equipment. And that's one thing Stoddard County has always been known for, is that we do have, and we try to always maintain, and we've always had that forward-thinking, progressive board to have that mentality with our staff, and they've always made sure we have some of the safest trucks on the road, the most up-to-date equipment. They've always been very forward-thinking. And that's one thing that our board is also trying to do with this tax, and is showing that they are being forward-thinking. I don't want anybody that's listening to this broadcast to think, oh, our ambulance district is going broke, because we're not. But again, at the rate of cost of everything going up and the way we're having to do everything, we've got to make a change before we get to that point to where we are at a month-to-month or year-to-year type thing. And so our board's trying to be forward-thinking and get this changed now. And on top of that, we're actually one of the few ambulance services in the state of Missouri as a whole that are still operating on a property tax system. All the other services around us, with the exception of just one or two that are actual ambulance districts, are already pulling a sales tax versus a property tax.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District, talking about the April 7th election.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
If you have any questions, you can reach out to Chuck. And Chuck, before I forget, what's the easiest way for someone to get a hold of you if they need to ask you questions or want you to come and talk about the proposal for that April 7th ballot initiative?
They can email me, which they can get that right off of our website, or just call the ambulance office at 573-624-4528. and you'll be prompted on there and select the business office, and you'll talk with my administrative assistant, and she will forward it back to me, or you'll be able to get straight to me, or feel free to dial my extension direct at 1140. So,
and Chuck, I'm going to ask you the question, and again, I'm not trying to trick you or anything of that nature, but since you've been the director, we've talked about the 20 cents on the $100 assessed valuation. Has that increased any while you've been the director?
The highest it has ever been that I can remember since I've been director, and I became director at the end of 2020, and it was in 2020 is the highest one I know of, and that tax rate was at 0.2065, and we are currently sitting at 0.2020. To my knowledge, the 0.2065, so the just over 20 and a half cents is the highest that we've ever had. Again, I may be wrong on that, but again, I'd have to go back and do some research, but to my knowledge, while I've been director, I know that's the highest that we've ever had.
And is that a assessed valuation rate set by the board of directors?
That is a rate that we get from the state.
Right.
And so the county clerk's office sends the county assessed value.
Yes.
And so then the state auditor's office has that there, and they off of those documents, and then they work through their figures, a lot more mathematical stuff than what I know, and they come up with what that tax rate should be, because we're only allowed to draw X amount of dollars.
Absolutely.
And so they set what that should be, and then that comes down to us, and then the board sets that rate. They either have the ability to, we can either go before the voters and ask for it to be increased, but we cannot go above 30 cents on the 100 because that's our ceiling. Or the board can accept that and set it at the rate that the state says, or they could take a voluntary rollback, which is what they are stating they will do this August if the voters approve to go and transition to this sales tax.
And one thing, again, we're with Chuck Kasting, the director of Stoddard County Ambulance District here on Welcome to the Loop with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. Chuck, it's not like you're also hoarding tons and tons of cash every year.
No, sir.
Every penny you put back into the budget is spent every year on goods and services for the Stoddard County Ambulance District. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is 100% correct. This year, whenever I wrote the budget and I presented it to the board, I'll tell you right now, whenever at the end of the year, I'm predicting that we're only going to have $10,000 in revenues over expenditures is what I'm looking at. So basically, every dollar we earn, I'm looking at putting right back out through purchasing of equipment, payment of the staff, benefits for the staff, upkeep of our stations, making sure everything is there and running in upkeep for the stations.
And again, the reason why I ask that, sometimes you look at some of these agencies or things, again, school districts, they say, well, we need a tax increase. We currently only have so much money in our rainy day fund. That's not the situation with the Stoddard County Ambulance District. Stoddard County Ambulance District pumps all that money back into equipment, personnel, things, so that way it's the most up-to-date modern technology you can get. Is that correct?
That is correct. Like I say, the board has, as we bring in revenues and you look at the bank accounts, we have what we call restricted funds and unrestricted funds. And those restricted funds is stuff that we've set back for purchasing of new ambulances, new equipment, and everything. And so that there may be funds that we carry over from year to year, but that's because we're growing them up in preparation, because right now we're buying a new ambulance every single year. We're wanting to get up to where we can reduce the age of our fleet and be able to purchase more than one ambulance a year. And that's not to mention also our communications that we currently run is getting ready to need a major overhaul as well too. The current radio system that we have in our building was put in 2012. In 2 years, it's going to reach its serviceable life. What does that mean? That means it can no longer be put under contract for repair or software upgrades. So it's going to need to be upgraded itself. And, we are contracted through 911 services here in Stoddard County to be the answering point for all 911 calls. We are the actual, what they call a PSAP, the primary answering point for all emergency services. And so, we got to have that top, we got to have a cutting edge communication system to be able to handle this stuff. While the 911 services board and the 911 services, they handle all the 911 equipment, but the radio stuff the ambulance district covers. And to update all 3 consoles that we currently have, which we'll have to do here in about another 2 years, we're looking at it's estimated going to be costing roughly $1 million to upgrade that. And we can't just do it one console at a time because they're all cloud-based now. Back when this was put in 2012, we could do that. We could do console A, console B, console C. Now then, the way they're made, they have to be put in all at once or else they won't be able to communicate effectively with each other. So that's another upgrade that we're looking at and where the revenue will be going to as well.
And again, we're talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District. And, I'll welcome Luke with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. Chuck, that brings me an excellent point. A lot of people, they want to think about technology. They want to think about their phones. Think about how much a cell phone has changed since 2012.
Oh man, it's leaps and bounds. I mean, every year they're changing. I mean, why do you think Apple puts out a new phone? It seems like a new phone every year. It's got new technology in it, and that's just the way. And I say Apple, but Android, Samsung, all of them are the same way. Every year they come out with a new gadget or new way of doing things. Everything is just changing at such a fast pace, and everything is so computerized now. You can buy a computer now, and in 6 months it's out of date. It seems like. And
Chuck, I have to have my 18-year-old son tell me which charger I'm supposed to use because they do the different charging options. I can't even find the right charger I'm supposed to use on my phone, let alone all these other things. And that's why it's so important that we stay on top of all this technology. Yes, correct?
That is 100% correct. And again, going back to our equipment and keeping up with everything. The way we treat patients in the back of our ambulance now, and our capabilities, and having these progressive protocols. Everybody talks about, you're having a heart attack. Everybody knows what a EKG is that they go and have done, or what they call as a 12 lead. Well, now then, we have the 15 lead technology that's out there, and it's just a little bit better all the way down, and it's all computer based. It's all new technology. And so if we don't keep up with the times, we're going to have an ambulance service that's going to be very I don't know how to say this, behind the times, for lack of a better way to say it. And so we've got to have this extra funding to keep us progressing forward.
And again, we're all welcome to the booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of Stoddard County Ambulance District. And Chuck, like you indicated, Stoddard County, much like Dunklin County, is a very, very large county.
That is correct.
So the amount of time, let's say, the ambulance gets out to someone, let's say in Acorn Ridge or somewhere like Aquila, somewhere Poe, the quicker you can treat people in the ambulance for the issues that are affecting them, the more likely they are going to survive that trip, because it's just going to take time, but just because we're in a rural area, correct?
That's exactly right. And as you mentioned earlier, we're very fortunate to have a hospital in our area. And I do want to, say, we have a very good hospital in our area, but we do have a limited hospital in our area. They do not have cardiac services. They do not have, they're not a stroke center. They're not a trauma center. And we're mandated by state statute that if we have somebody that we feel or are indicative, but through doing this technology of running the 12 lead, the 15 leads, hey, they're having a heart attack, we are bound by state statute to take them to the closest chest pain center that can actually go in and take care of that patient. We have the person that's presenting with the stroke. We cannot rule out a stroke. We have to take them to a stroke center. And so when you look at that, there are closest chest pain facilities, our interventional facilities, our closest ones are either in Bluff or Sikeston. Our closest trauma center for multi-system trauma that happens out here on 60 is in Cape. And so you're looking, that's going to be almost an hour drive. So it's very important we have this new technology and we keep this stuff available, because we are very rural. But by having this, we're able to effectively treat these patients on the scene and get them to the point where they need to be at. And again, we have different times and stuff. And we're very fortunate, again, to have this hospital that we have here. And it is a very good hospital, but there's sometimes those patients that we just can't take here. And trust me, I'd love to be able to take every patient we have here. I'd love to be able to do that. But it's just not feasible. And so not being rural, so you're looking at, we're going to have these patients possibly in our care for up to an hour and a half at a time. And so we need this technology, because medicine's not what it used to be, where, okay, you see X, you do Y. Now then we are trained, we get more in depth and more thinking in what we're doing. And we're actually, the hospitals is just carrying on the treatment that we've already started.
Because, I'm just speaking, I've had an accident. I've been picked up by the Stoddard County Ambulance District, did a great job. The more they can figure out what's going on in the ambulance and relay it to the emergency physician when you're there, the quicker they can also begin their care.
Yes.
If you're just in there waiting, not doing anything, just driving, and then they have to assess when they arrive at the emergency room, that's valuable time that's being lost in the treatment and recovery.
We're delaying that definitive treatment. So the more we can do and the more we can tell the hospital about what's going on, we're doing nothing more than just speeding up that definitive care and getting them closer to that definitive care.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District. So make sure you go out on April 7th, vote yes in favor of the sales tax of 1% for the ambulance district. Is that the proper way I need to tell people to vote?
I can't tell anybody which way to vote. I can't tell them to vote yes or no, but I can inform them and tell them the benefits of having this tax.
But a yes vote would increase to a 1% sales tax,
Yes.
allow you to roll back the 2026 property assessment to zero.
Yes.
And then freeze the rates until 2028. Is that correct?
Yes, and very likely in 2028, once we have a chance and the board has a chance to assess the revenues and the revenues of the district, we very well may be able to start seeing a rate reduction at that point there. It's all going to depend on how the sales tax, if we get if the voters agree to transition to the sales tax in April.
And again, people don't ask my opinion, but I'm going to give it. This is the way to go for Stoddard County. I would 100% support this full force. And again, the 1% just allows you to set something, and then you can look at it and see it. We may need a full 1%. We may need, half that. We may need a third of it. We just need to see where we're at on the rates. And one thing, Chuck, that we haven't even talked about, in addition to new equipment, monitoring equipment, ambulances, things of that nature, also personnel, is you also have to maintain the buildings.
That is correct, and we have 4 of the buildings. Again, we've committed to these communities that have the ambulances housed in them. We have facilities in every one of those, and so we just have general maintenance. Electric bills, actual repairs. Our oldest building is in Advance right now, and that building was built in 1997. Our newest building is here in Dexter, and we moved into that one in 2010, is when we done a remodel, and we moved into that building. And so the buildings sign up getting age. You've got to stay on top of them. They're going to get creaks. They're going to need to be painted. You're going to have stuff that's going to break just due to age, and you've got to maintain those buildings.
And I think, Chuck, and I hope everyone will agree that the more locations you can have, the better off you are in a county this size. I mean, you have to have a facility in Bernie. You need to have one in Puxico. You need to have one in Advance. Obviously, ideal if you could have one in every community, but that's not feasible. Yeah. But you do the coverage area the best you possibly can, correct?
We do the best we can with it. And again, we come down to it. People say, well, at Puxico, I'm not going to lie, at Dexter is our busiest station. Dexter does approximately 50% of our call volume. Bernie is our second busiest. And then Advance, and then Puxico. Puxico is our slowest station. But again, it's not that they don't do anything. Puxico probably averages, 3 to 4 calls a day. Up there, whereas here at the Dexter facility, we average probably about 12 calls a day.
Right.
12 to 14 calls a day. So, but at the same time, if we did not have that house up there in Puxico, now those county citizens are 30 minutes away from the closest ambulance. Well, that's not right. What makes this area more important than what that area is. It's not. They're all still citizens of Stoddard County. And so with this county being as big as it is, again, we cover 829 square miles. We've got to have these. And the kind of the standard right now in doing this, when you do this research and everybody says, well, how many ambulances do I need to have for my ambulance service? Say you're starting one up. The kind of rule of thumb is for the rural areas we're setting is to have one ambulance for every 1,000 calls that you run. Well, we're running 5 crews 24 hours a day right now, and we're actually pulling about 6,700 calls. So by that theory, we're almost really 1.5 to 2 ambulances short of what we should have. But again, to do that means, again, I have to add 2 more ambulances to the fleet, because I can't just have one ambulance. I got to have them a backup in case something does break. And you're looking, that's going to add about another 5 personnel to the full-time roster as well too. So again, not saying that, hey, we transition to this is going to happen, but this is another way that we might eventually be able to get to that, is by transitioning to this tax. And that would increase that revenue and maybe free up that, where we would be able to possibly increase that actual number of ambulances that we're running on a regular basis.
And again, we're here with Chuck Kasting, Director of Stoddard County Ambulance District, on Welcome to Luke with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking about the April 7th election, transitioning to the 1% sales tax to allow the Stoddard County Ambulance Board to roll back the 20 cents per assessed $100 valuation that the property tax is paying, roll that back to zero, freeze the rates to 28 on all services will be frozen, and allow a 1% sales tax. The 1% sales tax will then be reviewed after the revenue is kind of set in place, see where we're at, and it could either go down a little bit or maybe stay the same. But again, for the services, Chuck, I can't imagine that the 1% sales tax wouldn't be so beneficial for the citizens of Stoddard County. Like we talked about, the one thing you want to have are great school districts. We have numerous great school districts here in Stoddard County. We also have excellent, we have a hospital.
Yes.
Excellent hospital, and you want to have good ability to get there, and that's the Stoddard County Ambulance District. Chuck, one thing I want to ask you, and you're going to think, why is he asking me this? But I think it's a very interesting question. We talked about a paramedic and EMT, and I'm assuming you're running 2 people per crew, man or woman.
Yes.
Do the crews always work together as a team, or do you kind of change that up? And what I mean is, I don't know, a long time ago there were shows on TV called sitcoms, and I remember watching a show called, I don't know what it was. There's all kinds of shows now, but it was always the same people working on the ambulance crews together. Is that kind of how we do it in Stoddard County, or do you kind of rotate?
No, they rotate through. All of our crew members are required to rotate through every station, and then they rotate their partners as well too. So when they work with, if they work this last 48 hours with this EMT, the next time they come in, chances are they're going to be with a completely different partner. We kind of like to do it that way because, number one, if you get with the same people, there's benefits and drawbacks to both of it. You get comfortable with somebody, and and you can think ahead of what they're wanting to do, but then at the same time, you do get used to that same person, and so you tend to be a little bit more, not really lackadaisical, but you kind of, don't really second guess anything. You just kind of lay things to the side. Whereas if you're always with somebody new, it keeps you thinking, and you're able to learn new techniques, because I can guarantee you, and I can tell you from 30 years of experience, no paramedic is going to run the same scene the same way. You take me as a paramedic and you take my assistant who is a paramedic, you put us on the scene of a chest pain patient, we're going to have different things we're going to want at different times, and different procedures that we're going to do and when we're going to do them and how we like to see them done. And so I think that kind of makes, if you have that diversity in your partner, we're going to give you that diversity in your care, and you're going to see different avenues. Not that any of us are doing it wrong, but we all do it differently. And that way you can kind of see a broad spectrum of everything. And one other thing that Stoddard County does, that I know some services, they require their paramedics to ride with everything. Regardless, it doesn't matter what it is. Once the transport starts, the paramedic is working the back and the EMT is driving. That's one thing that Stoddard County does not do. The paramedic is going to take the lead. They're the highest licensure. They're going to take the lead. They're going to assess that patient. If they deem there's no advanced care that's needed, we want to have our EMTs be confident in the back, taking care of a patient and controlling the patient's needs. And so we'll let that EMT ride in the back with the patient, and the paramedic will drive. Again, they're always there. If needed, they can pull that over and the paramedic can get in the back. But that's one thing we always do, because, again, I've always looked at it this way. How does an EMT know they want to go commit a year of their life to come to paramedic school when they don't know whether they want to work the back of the ambulance or not? And so by doing this, that allows them to work in the back of that ambulance and say, hey, yeah, this is something I want to do.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chuck Kasting, the director of the Stoddard County Ambulance District, talking about the upcoming April 7th election to transition to the 1% sales tax. Chuck, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to let you have an opportunity to give the last word here about the April 7th initiative. If anybody's interested in talking to Chuck or anyone from the board or anybody involved, they can reach out to the Stoddard County Ambulance District. They can get his email. They can get his phone number. They can talk to him. Just stop by. He's a very cordial man. He loves to talk to people. He said he was nervous. He sounds like a professional to me. He sounds better than I do on the radio.
I don't know about that.
So, Chuck, I'm going to let you have the last word.
Well, yeah, like I say, I would appreciate everybody coming out and taking the time to vote. Again, this is something that we're wanting to do. And first and foremost, I want everybody to understand this is, in a sense, this is a tax relief, a tax rollback on the property taxpayers or the taxpayers in Stoddard County. We are stating the board's already committed to, if they will transition to the sales tax, August of this year, they will set our property tax assessed down to 0. We will freeze all of our billable rates until 2028 to give our finances time to stabilize and give the board a chance to look at everything. And then at that point in 2028, it's very likely or very well could be on the books to take an actual rate reduction. I do not foresee a rate increase. At anything, I think it would stay the same. But again, there's a very good likelihood that we could actually maybe even start reducing our rates, which would be beneficial to everybody.
And again, we're here with Chuck Kasting, the director of Stoddard County Ambulance District, providing everyone April 7th, 2026, Stoddard County. It will be on the ballot. Is it going to be in the form of shall the Stoddard County?
Yes. If anybody would like, again, they can come by our office. We have a brochure that they can be welcome to pick up. We will mail these out to them. We plan on doing a mailing if we can. But if somebody would like one to come by our office, we have them laying there. We have them at all of our outlying facilities as well too. And it actually has a sample of what the ballot question will be on the back of the brochure there.
I'm going to go out and go ahead and say yes, vote yes. I know Chuck can't say one way or the other. He just gives me the information, and he's done very well providing that to the listeners. Again, vote yes for the 1% sales tax. It's a property relief for the property owners of Stoddard County. April 7th, 2026. Again, Chuck, I can't thank you enough for coming here today, and I thank everyone. I can't say enough about the excellent work of the Stoddard County Ambulance District. We thank you for everything you do. I know that we've had some tough times here in the last couple of days, and we really
it's been a very tough time here within the past couple of days. But they're all really good employees. We work well together, and this is one thing that myself, Hank Trout, the Dexter Police Chief, Don Seymour, the Fire Chief, Carol Moreland, and I, one administrator, and all fire services. One thing that I feel good about, and the citizens of Stoddard County are to feel good about, your emergency services work very well together. And we all try to work well together. And even though we've had a bad couple days, we're a family.
Absolutely.
And we're going to stick together, and we're there for each other.
And again, I can't thank Chuck enough. Please go out April 7th and vote yes on the 1% sales tax, roll back the property taxes. And on behalf of my executive producer, Evan Todd, my producer, Misty Hankins, I'd like to thank you for joining us on Welcome to the Booth. I hope you have an excellent afternoon and a better tomorrow.